Good afternoon. We're going to try this again. My phone is telling me that I don't have a connection, and I know that I do. So we're just going to go right on. Anyway, I hope y'all had a good day today. It was beautiful. It was a little bit cool outside, but it's March, so it's supposed to be. One day last week, I think I was walking around in the house in short pants and a t-shirt. And then the next day or two, I was walking around with a jacket. And this afternoon, I had a jacket on while I was sitting on the back porch. But that's all part of March. It's going to be crazy. Last night was the night we had to change our clocks. And, of course, and I've got a friend, David Tadlock, and to me this is one of the most brilliant things, and I never think about doing it. But he always gets up. I think he actually updates their clocks, changes all their clocks on Friday night when they go to bed. So all day Saturday, they're on the new time. And then by the time Sunday rolls around, it's, they're already kind of used to it, which I think is, to me, that's great. And then you get up Sunday and it's not a big deal. Your mind is already set. But anyway, that's a good idea. And I keep saying I'm going to remember to do that, and then I never do. But I believe I heard someone say that they were going to try to fix it this time so that we don't have to change the clocks again. And I'll be honest, I don't care. I would rather it stay one way or the other. I know there's no difference in the length of sunlight we have. It's just what time you're getting to enjoy it, either early in the morning or late in the afternoon. And they can't say it's because of the kids on the bus, because some of them are either getting on in the dark or they're getting off in the dark. So there's a lot of reasons, but very few of them make sense to me. But I agree with the old Native American thing that says it's kind of silly to think that you can cut the top off of a blanket and sew it at the bottom and make the blanket bigger. But that's neither here nor there. So anyway, I hope you had a good day. I had an excellent day. A friend of mine and I rode over to Greenville and went to church at Lifeline. If you're looking for a good church home in Greenville or anywhere near there, they are excellent. They love people. They are kind. Brother Bruce is the preacher, and he preaches the truth. He doesn't sugarcoat it, but he also doesn't beat you over the head with it. He tells the truth. And I made the statement to my friend this morning, if nobody else got anything out of that sermon, I did. I felt like it was aimed right at me, and it caught me right between the eyes. It was exactly what I needed to hear. I will back up and tell you a little bit of backstory. They're doing small groups at Lifeline, and the one that I'm going to is a study of the book Experiencing God, and I think it's either 12 or 13 week course. And each week you have 5 days that you have little assignments. It's anywhere from 2 to 5 pages. You read, answer questions. They'll give you Bible scripture to read, and you read that, and that pertains to, and then there's questions. And there's, like I said, there's a lesson, 5 lessons a week. And each week is a unit. And so we're on unit 7. And I mentioned to one of the other ladies at the church this morning who's also attending. She asked me how I was doing. I said, I'm doing great. But I said, I don't know about y'all, but it's getting harder and harder to do these lessons. It's hard because it's asking more of me. I'm having to dig deeper. I'm having to look at things and think about why I feel the way I do about things. And am I really wanting to trust God and do what he wants me to do? I went through this study one time before. It's probably been 25, maybe coming up to 30 years ago. It was when we were going to Rutledge Second Baptist Church. And I did not put near the work into it that I should have. And so... but this time I said I was going to, because it changed my life just a little bit that I did then. And so I absolutely wanted to get everything I could out of it. And there's a part of me that wants to skim through stuff, but you can't do that. If you really want to get the benefit from it, you have to dig deep, answer the questions, pray about it, and look. And one of the questions that they have repeatedly said is, what impossible thing is God asking you to do? And I've been struggling with that. I mean, for the last couple of weeks, ever since they started asking it, and I'm thinking, he's not asking me to do anything that's impossible for me. I mean, I I don't feel like he's been asking me to do big things. That's what I'm trying to say. Because God can do impossible things, but that's what we have to get to the point that God's going to ask you to do impossible things, and it's up to you to decide whether you're going to do it or not. And so I've been struggling with that a lot. I've been praying, and I've been trying to see whether I've missed something that God said, or am I being disobedient in a way that's keeping him from speaking to me. And so I've been praying and seeking and asking, Lord, show me what you want me to do. I want to be obedient, because I do. I don't, and I'm not saying I'm perfect, but far from it. But I hope I have not intentionally been disobedient. Obviously, none of us is perfect and we're going to mess up. But when we do, if we want to follow God, we try our best to repent when we realize it and do better. And so I've been struggling with that, but that message this morning really hit home for me and helped me a lot. And so this afternoon, another thing they've encouraged us to do was to journal. And so I've been doing that a little bit. I've never been comfortable journaling. I don't know. It just felt like something that wasn't something I wanted to do. But I sat down this afternoon and typed it up, because it was about 3 pages typed. And I typed up about 3 pages, and I feel better, and I feel a little bit more focused. So I'm going to continue to do that. Some of it I'll write by hand, but some things I'll type, because I know I'll want to go back and edit before I print it out. And I just feel more comfortable with that. But again, sometimes I am going to write things out, because the physical act of writing is a part of the sacrifice and a part of the job. So it's an excellent study. And again, it's called Experiencing God. It's by Henry Blackaby. And I can't think of the other man's name who co-wrote it. But if you look up Experiencing God, you can do it by yourself, but it's better to do it in a group, because accountability. But it's excellent. It's excellent. There are videos that go along with it. We meet once a week and discuss what we've talked about, what we've studied about, and watch the video and hear their things. Some of the things are just amazing. But I'm not going, that's not what I wanted to talk to you about tonight. I did want to talk to you, but that's not what I want to talk to you about. God has given me a little bit of direction, I believe, and I'm planning on getting back on track, doing what he's asking me to do. I'm going to try to, one of the things I'm going to try to do, because I'm bad to sit in the house, is I'm going to get out on the back porch, or take the golf cart and ride to a spot in the yard and sit and maybe do my Bible reading there, so that I'm outside, I'm in a different place, and maybe my mind, because I'm in a different spot, maybe I can hear from God better. I want to hear from God. I want to do what he's got me to do. So, saying all that, I want to read to you about David and Goliath. And I know you know this story. I know this story. It's one of those that you hear if you were in Sunday school as a small child. You heard this story. And but I think it's good for us to hear it again. Sometimes we need to hear old stories, but we need to hear them with new ears. So I'm going to read this, and I'm going to just tell you a couple of things about it. But anyway, it is found in 1 Samuel chapter 17, and I'm going to start in verse 38. But now you know there's a backstory. David he had already been anointed king by Samuel, and then he went immediately back out and was taking care of his father's sheep. Didn't go and act like he was supposed to take over the kingdom. He was out taking care of the sheep, and his brothers were away at the war front, I guess you could say, with the Philistines. And his dad sent for him and said, I want you to take some food down to your brothers and see how they're getting along. And he sent food for the brothers, and he sent food for their captain, just something to let them know that he was thinking about them and praying for them, and to encourage them. He said, go down there and see how they're doing, and then come back and tell me. And when he got down there, his brothers were not happy with him. They thought he was coming down there to tattle on them, or to see what they were doing and be nosy. They weren't happy. And while he's there, he hears Goliath, the giant, the Philistine, standing on the other side of the valley from the Israelites, along with all of his people. And he was shouting ugly things at the Israelites, trying to trying to get them to come. He said, you send your best person and they're going to fight me. And whoever wins will take the other people, all the people, for slaves. And the Israelites were just standing there listening to him. They were discouraged. They knew one of them couldn't fight him in their own might, because he was so big and there was so many things about him. And so David overheard what he was saying. He wasn't really there to do that. He just overheard him and went to King Saul and said, who is this guy that's shouting insults at the God that we serve? Who does this guy think he is? And King Saul says, well, nobody will go and try to fight him. And so he talked to Saul and he said, well, I'll go. And Saul said, well, I can't let you do that. And he said, yes, I want to go. And so Saul tried to give him his armor. And you remember the description of Saul. He was a head taller than everybody else. So his armor was big. And of course, when he tried to put it on David, it was way too big for him, because David was still a young teenager. And he said, I can't do that. I can't do it that way. And so that's where I'm going to start, is in verse 38. I'll read to the end of the chapter. So all this has gone on ahead of time. David says, I'm going out there because God, we don't need to allow this person to keep insulting the God that we serve, the God of the universe. So verse 38 says, and then Saul had his own military clothes put on David. He put a bronze helmet on David's head and had him put on armor. David strapped his sword on over the military clothes and tried to walk, but he was not used to them. I can't walk in these, David said to Saul. I'm not used to them. So David took them off. Instead, he took his staff in his hand and chose 5 smooth stones from the Wadi, which is a stream, W-A-D-I, which is a stream, and put them in his pouch, in his shepherd's bag. Now, we're going to talk about why 5 stones in just a few minutes and why they were smooth. Then, with his sling in his hand, he approached the Philistine. The Philistine came closer and closer to David, with the shield bearer in front of him. When the Philistine looked and saw David, he despised him because he was just a youth, healthy and handsome. He said to David, am I a dog that you come against me with sticks? And then he cursed David by his gods. Come here, the Philistine called to David, and I'll give your flesh to the birds of the sky and the wild beasts. And David said to the Philistine, hold on just a second, I'm going to mark that. David said to the Philistine, you come against me with a sword, a spear, and a javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord of armies, the God of the ranks of Israel. You have defiled him. Today the Lord will hand you over to me. Today I'll strike you down, remove your head, and give the corpses of the Philistine camp to the birds of the sky and the wild creatures of the earth. Then all the world will know that Israel has a God, and this whole assembly will know that it is not by sword or by spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's. He will hand you over to us. When the Philistines started forward to attack him, David ran quickly to the battle line to meet the Philistine. David put his hand in the bag, took out a stone, slung it, and hit the Philistine on his forehead. The stone sank into his forehead, and he fell face down to the ground. Now let me stop and say this. I know this says forehead, and people will say, well, you can't kill somebody by hitting them in the head, in the forehead. But now I have read somewhere, and it doesn't matter, God did it. God got behind that stone and made it run through the air as fast as it could go. But I have heard people say that he was actually struck in the temple, which there is a soft spot there from what I understand. And that would have been but it doesn't matter because God took care of it. Don't let people argue with you about stuff. David defeated the Philistine with a sling and a stone. David overpowered the Philistine and killed him without having a sword. David ran and stood over him. He grabbed the Philistine's sword, pulled it from its sheath, and used it to kill him. Then he cut off his head. When the Philistines saw that their hero was dead, they fled. The men of Israel and Judah rallied, shouting their battle cry, and chased the Philistines to the entrance of the valley and to the gates of Ekron. Philistine bodies were strewn all along the Shiram road to Gath and Ekron. When the Israelites returned from the pursuit of the Philistines, they plundered their camps. David took Goliath's head and brought it to Jerusalem, but he put Goliath's weapons in his own tent. Now, some people say he did that as a way, as like he could look at it and say, this is what God did for me. And that would be great. I think we all need to have markers of things where God did something for us, showed us something, taught us something, so we can look back on it and say, yep, that right there, that was one of those things. Verse 55, when Saul had seen David going out to confront the Philistine, he asked Abner, the commander of the army, whose son is this youth, Abner? Your Majesty, as surely as you live, I don't know, Abner replied. The king said, find out whose son this young man is. When David returned from killing the Philistine, Abner took him and brought him before Saul, with the Philistine's head still in his hand. Saul said to him, whose son are you, young man? The son of your servant Jesse of Bethlehem, David answered. And that's the end of the chapter. So I want to remind y'all, David was already anointed king by Samuel. Samuel went to the house, anointed him as king, and then they all went on about their business. So David had the right to be where Saul was, but he also knew that until God told him to do that, he didn't need to take a step. So that's all he said. I am the son of your servant Jesse of Bethlehem. That's who I am. He wasn't puffed up. He wasn't walking around saying, I'm the real king of Israel, and you need to step down so I can step up. He didn't do that. He was being who God told him to be. So there's that to remember. So now I want to come back over here in verse 40. It says, instead he took his staff in his hand and chose 5 smooth stones. So now why 5? Because Goliath had 4 other brothers. I did not know this until not too long ago. David was getting those 5 stones to use to kill the others if they came up, which they weren't going to, but that was David's way of saying, I'm going to be ready for him and anybody that comes after him because God has told me to do this. And sometimes we have to do that. We have to have a little bit of extra in our hand to remind us, not to remind God, but to remind us that God has told us to do this, and here we go. Now, the reason those stones were smooth is because they had laid in that stream a long time. I know you've noticed that anytime you go wading, we used to love when the kids were little, we would go to the mountains and we would go wading in these rivers and streams on the side of the road. And of course it was full of smooth stones. Well, they were smooth because the water had rushed over them for so many hundreds of years. It had worn any jagged edges off. So they were smooth. Those stones were laying in that creek bed, that wadi, W-A-D-I, waiting on David. There's no telling how long they laid there, but God put them there waiting on David to come and pick them up. There's so many things like that throughout the Bible. If you think about it, the tree that Zacchaeus climbed to see Jesus was planted a long time before Zacchaeus ever thought about trying to see Jesus. So God has got things for us, and he's already put them in place, even though we're not ready to use them yet. But when we get ready, they're going to be there. So God knows what we're going to do, and he is going ahead of us, preparing a place for us, getting us ready. So remember those 5 smooth stones. I've got an old dessert cup that was I think it was either my mama's or my grandmama's little glass cup. We used to eat Jell-O pudding out of it. And I've got it on my desk or Randy's desk over there. And I've got 5 little stones, like you get the little bag from Walmart to put down in your flower vases. Got 5 stones in there because I'm ready for Goliath. When God tells me to go after him, I'm ready. And again, sometimes you have to have things that will remind you of what's going on and who you are. So That's part of what I'm getting out of this today. Now, next week, if I read it again, I may get something else. But remember that God has a plan for each of us. He has already designed all the elements of it. If we will just do what he asks us to do, he's got it all figured out. We don't have to. David didn't have to know now what am I going to wear and where am I going to go and how am I going to know what to do? He knew God was going to take care of it, and he was just doing his part. That's what we need to do. God's got something for each of us to do. Now, it may not look like anything very big right now, but in God's plan, it may turn out to be something big later on. I'm going to tell you this, and then I'll be done. Billy Graham, a great preacher, and no telling how many people he introduced to Jesus, or he introduced Jesus to. He didn't save anybody, we know that. And if I'm not mistaken, he came to faith in Jesus by hearing a sermon from Billy Sunday, who was another preacher that preached to thousands and thousands of people and shared the gospel with them, brought people to know in Jesus so they could make that decision. And he was a great preacher. Well, imagine the person who taught Billy Sunday in Sunday school when he was a little boy. I don't know who it was, but there was somebody in his, as a child, I'm sure, who taught him in Sunday school. And just imagine that person had an effect on Billy Sunday's life, who had an effect on Billy Graham's life. I think that story's correct. But you see what I'm saying? You could be 3 or 4 generations, so to speak, from somebody who has a huge impact on the kingdom. And you may think your part is just, well, all I'm doing is working in the nursery. Well, but that's not a little thing. Taking care of children while their parents are in service and listening. Sometimes, if all you're doing is in there singing Jesus Loves Me and working puzzles with them, sometimes that's the greatest thing you can do, because you're letting mama and daddy sit in that service and hear a sermon without being distracted because the baby's fussy or they're worried about the baby bothering somebody else. That's a great thing to do. If you're the person who greets people in your church, you're the face of that church. You don't know how many people are glad to come to church because you're the one standing at the door, handing them a bulletin and saying, boy, I'm glad to see you today. Making sure that somebody gets from the parking lot into the church, opening the door for them, walking in with them, helping them with their stuff. The little things that we do have a huge impact. We don't see it, but we do. So please be encouraged that there are no little things. They may look little to us, but to God, it's a piece of the puzzle. So I just want to encourage you to listen to what God has to say to you. And if you're not sure what he's having to say, what he wants you to do, find a book in the Bible. Read about David. Read about, just pick a book in the Bible and start reading. Find a character that you like. Google where they are in the Bible and read about them. Just keep reading. Read and read and read and keep reading, and the Lord will show you something. If you're identifying with a person, if you're identifying with a person in the Bible, maybe that's the one you need to be studying. Because God's got a message for you there. And it's like I was saying a while ago, I can read a section of scripture today and get something for it, and then in 2 weeks go back and read that same thing, and God will show me something slightly different. Brother Bruce preached a message this morning on Paul and Silas being in prison. Many times as I've read and heard that story, brought out a point I've never thought about before. And I'm not going to tell you what it is. You just need to go to Lifeline Church and listen to the sermon, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But all of us can have an impact. All we have to do, we don't have to be smart, strong, young, good-looking, rich. None of those things matters. All we have to do is be willing. And I'm going to be willing, and I hope you are too. So I hope you have a great week this week. If you want more information about experiencing God, send me a message and I'll send you the link to the information so that your small group can do it. It's excellent. You don't have to know a whole lot about it. There's a book that goes with it that teaches you how to teach the lesson. And Miss Charlotte, that's leading ours, she says, I'm not a teacher, I'm a facilitator, and she's doing an excellent job. So you just need somebody that's going to be responsible for making sure the DVD goes in the player and that you read what you're supposed to read. It's excellent study. And there's a lot of other good studies out there too. There's more than probably one person can go through in their lifetime. But anyway, I hope y'all have a great week this week. I'm going to try to start doing lives more often during the week. Probably will do them from my page to kind of keep this page from being super cluttered. But just check on me. Beth McDaniel Rogers is how I am on Facebook. Check with mine and check with the 3-in-1 Motorcycle Ministries. And you'll see me, because I'm going to start being a little bit better about doing that. As I read things, I'm going to share with you. So have a great week. I love y'all, and I will see you next week.